All right, we're back, and here we're at COMP397, web game programming with TypeScript. We're broadcasting live. All right, so where last we left off, we kind of had decided on this collision method. We created a collider, right? And what we want to do here is, before we continue, is I want to upload to GitHub, because this is a good time to do that. So I'm going to click here in my VS Code, and I'm going to click changes on the top here, which adds all these to the staging area. And now you notice there's a bunch of stuff that I changed here, right? I changed my game script here, my game.ts scene. I changed my game object, and I changed my task.json. A bunch of things changed. Let's update that. So I'll say added, game collisions. That's what I really did. I'm going to change this again when I change my collisions to a collider class, right? But for now, this is pretty good here. So I'm going to click check mark and then go push, and then I'll push that up to GitHub. So now you have the latest. You'll have the latest up on GitHub for our little mail pilot demo, right? So everything that I have done so far today. Okay, so we've done GitHub. We've got this collision class happening, or sorry, collision method, and we use this utility method that's a distance checker. So this is the, we'll use the same thing here. So on this, we'll say this is a private utility method right now that checks collisions between plain object, and other objects. That's what it does. So that's what that does. And now what I want to do is, when I have a collision with my island, I want to play the yay sound. How do I do that? So there's some easy ways to do that. Now first, I need to check a couple things, right? Just to confirm, because otherwise we'll get in trouble if we don't do this right, in the right order. One, let's go back to my core game.ts file, right? So here's my core game.ts file. I want to check to see, by the way, here's my frames that I have in here. I'm adding in a sprite sheet, right? A sprite atlas. But down here I have yay as in my audio as yay.og. Can I play og files in with CreateJS? Okay, that's the first thing I need to check. Can I do it? Now that I know that I can do it, what I want to do is I want to play this file, and I want to use createjs.sound.play, right? So I could do that, or I can make it an instance, a sound instance, by creating a sound object. Now sometimes it's better to create a sound object because you can stop and start sound object, right? Whereas here I can't start and stop. Once I make play the engine sound, it'll play until it's done. Like thunder will play until it's done. And so same thing with yay. Yay will play until it's done. Okay. So I have no control. I can only play it, and then whether it loops or stops or whatever, it does it on its own. Okay. Which is okay for me for now, but I'm just mentioning that that's how it works. Okay. So I don't need my game object anymore. So let's just in my game object space over here, I'm just going to call it my game.ts file that's in part of my states. So this is my states, and I'm going to just take this away again by taking that away. Okay, good. So in my states, this is the actual state I want. I want to call this yay sound in here. Let's do that. So take away this console.log island.hit. I don't need that anymore. And I'll say CreateJS, capital CreateJS.sound.play, and then the actual sound that I'm using is I pass into it. Look at all the overloads here. I can pass in a string. I can pass in an interrupt. I can pass in a delay. I can pass in a bunch of objects, right? So let's say play, and I want to play the name of the object I want to play is the yay sound, right? Okay, cool. And might as well put the cloud hits in there too, right? So I'll just say if it's a cloud hit, CreateJS.sound.play, and then it's going to be the thunder sound, right? Thunder. Okay, cool. So that's what it does, right? And let's see if this will work. So I'll transpile. So I'll transpile everything. I'll go back to this, and I'll go here, and I'll refresh, right? And I'll start. So now, right, hits. That's good, right? And well, give me that yay, man.
Yay.
Good, good, good.
Yay. Yay.
It's all good. So we've got that
Yay.
feedback for the user that this is working now.
Yay.
Better stop this. It's going to keep going forever. This is good. This means that like my my yay sound is working. I've got it working, so it's working for both for everything that's happening right now. This is a good thing. These are good things. Yeah. I mean, click the sound file. Clip? Yes. Audacity will do it for you. Yep. Audacity, right? Actually, it looks like this. Let's see if I got it too. There's other ones. I know, Jay, you must know other ones too. Audacity is the one that's the free one. Yeah, it's really kind of cool, Audacity, right? There's other really cool ones, but they all cost. Wow. Is it good? I wonder how it works. If it's really, really good. Okay, let's check to see. Yeah, let's see if I can. Let's try this now. So I've got this thing working. It's got its sounds. Now I want to play my engine sound. Remember, my engine, whenever I instantiate my plane, I want to play my engine sound forever, right? So how do I do that? Well, okay, let's check this out. So I want to loop my engine sound forever, right? Well, we're going to get the answers from my my utility, right? So I'm going to go back to my files, and instead of my thank you. Instead of me playing my on this side my my game.ts, I'm just going to open up my game object plane, because this is the only change I'm going to make to my plane object itself, because it's going to play the sound for the engine. So there's my sound. So when I instantiate my plane, here it is, and this one I'm going to pass over here. When I instantiate my plane, I want in my constructor to play my sound forever. So let's do this. So I'll say create.js sound play, and now I gotta be careful how I do this. Look at the things options. So I need a string. I have an optional interrupt. I have a delay, if any, right? That's so my interrupt is there's an interrupt. I could put null, right? And again, it's of type any. A delay is a number. So an interrupt, a number, an offset, and a loop. Hey, and then volume and pan, right? So those are the options I have. So let's try this out. So my string, which is the name of my thing, which is called engine, comma, interrupt if any, I'll put 0, comma, delay if any is 0, comma, my offset is any is 0, comma, my loop -1, right, comma, volume 1, comma, pan, right, if I want to put that in. Now if I got to be careful here, I think it's 0 for pan. And then enter. This is the engine sound. I'm going to play it continuously if it works properly, if I did this right. If I didn't do it right, it's going to error out and won't play anything. Right? We'll know how it works in a second. So just transpile. It's done. Go back to here and go to localhost 8080. And now when I press start, I have nothing. So I know that something went wrong. If it didn't go wrong, then notice how nothing plays now. Why does nothing play? Because I made a mistake. And we'll see that in a couple ways, right? Oh, wait.
Yay.
No, it just doesn't play. It just doesn't play the sound, the engine sound.
Yay.
What happened? Let me refresh this again. Yeah.
Yay. Yay.
It plays forever.
Yay. Yay. Yay.
Right?
Yay.
Okay, this works nice. I'm not going to play that forever. Thank you very much. Whew. That was enough as it is. Okay, cool. So that is my engine sound. It works, and I might as well annotate it by, play engine sound so that we know what it is. This is cool and all, and I like it, what we've done, but we need to kind of make our collider into a class, because I don't want to just, I may have other scenes that I want to use my collider checking and all that kind of stuff again, right? So how do we write this? And I want you guys to help me out. This is good practice for you guys. I know how to do it, but I want you guys to learn how to do this collision class. I want to write a collision class where I have two methods in my collision class, all right? And I have an update, by the way. I'm going to have an update method in my collision class, right? I have one method called check collision, right? And, or do I, here's my other check, my other question to you is, do I not even have a check collision public method? I just do call collision.update. And I do in my update of my collision class itself, right? I do check collision on its own. I never call the check collision class, the check collision method outside of my class. It's a private method. And I just call my update, my public update method, which is probably better. Yeah? What do you think of that? So let's write this class together, right? Because I want to be able to have a collider, a collision class that I can check from anywhere. And I don't want to limit myself just to this state, which is my game state. What if I have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4? Tomorrow, I don't want to code it in here. This is coded inside my game state. I don't want to redo this again and again. That makes no sense, right? I want to add to it. I can add other things. I have island and cloud collision checking. I can add other ones in here, right? But that I can do in my collider on my collision class as opposed to here in each of my game states. Okay, so how do we do that? So let's go into my files for a second. And I know it's going to be a class that I'm going to put in here. Is it an object? No, right? And it's not a state. So that's not there either, right? So it's not an object, not a state. It's definitely a part of my scripts. It's not one of my core classes, right? So that means we need a new folder and a new namespace, right? This collision class is going to be a manager. It's going to be a collision manager. It's going to take care of all my collisions for me, right? Just like my scoreboard is going to be a manager, my scoring manager. Just like my asset, I can create an asset class for my asset management, for all my assets across my game, right? To encapsulate this stuff as opposed to make it as part of one object or another, right? So in my scripts, then, I need to create a new folder, right? Which we're going to call managers. Right? Objects, managers, states. Notice how they're all plural, right? Models, controllers, views, right? Same idea. Managers. You could also call this managers controllers. My collision controller, right? My score controller, whatever you want to call it. I call them managers because it makes more sense. Okay. So in my managers, I'll start it off for you. I'll make a new file, right? That I'm going to call collision. Right? Collision.ts. There it is. That's my collision.ts. Okay, I'm leaving this one open here. I'm leaving this one open here because this is what I want to take into my collision class. So how do I write this thing, please? Let's start off. Okay, come on, guys. I want you to help me write this one. All right, so here's my collision.ts. It's inside. It's going to have a new namespace. It's going to be called, the namespace is going to be called managers. All right, how do I write this? Module, very good. Very good, very good, very good. So I write the first name, the first keyword is module. The next one is managers, right? Okay, and then of course I have to write this inside some kind of curly braces, right? Okay, so that's first. Second, I need to include my class definition, right? So how do I do that? And can't forget to export the class because otherwise it'll be bad. So export. I'll start this off for you. Class. And then the name of the class, collision. Yeah.
So are these the names of the folders, managers, objects, are they reserved names?
No, no? I'm making it. You can make them whatever you want. And the, well, you have to know how it's working, right? Because you have to match the module with the name. Oh, I'll look at it for you. All right. So.
I think I changed it to the names that we use.
Okay. Okay, well we can make them whatever. I'm using it managers because it makes sense to me. So here's my collision class. I need a constructor, yeah? So first of all, let's do some annotation. So for my class, my collision class, I'm going to put in collision class There's a little bit of commenting here. And then inside my collision class, I need a constructor. So I'm going to say constructor. Okay, so I've set up the basic thing for you. And in my constructor, I want to kind of do bam, bam, right? Because that's the new way of doing it, right? First of all, does my constructor take any parameters? So collision class, no parameters.
Did you export functions?
Yes?
Okay, that's what it said.
Yes, you could. You can just export the function. I just take these private methods the way they are, pull them in here, and just put export on the outside. Change these from private to public, and you're good. Or public, just even take the modifier off because it wouldn't be methods anymore. And I wouldn't need to do this keyword anymore because they're functions. Good. Yes. I don't want that because that's functional programming. I'm doing object-oriented programming with you guys, right? So I like your thinking though. All right. So collision class, no parameters for my constructor. Constructor. Okay, cool. So in here, I need an update function. I know this is going to be public update, right? And it's going to return void. I'm not going to return anything. So public update, return void. This is my structure, and this is going to be my public, my update function. So I'm going to do bam, bam. So, and this is my update method. Right, so, okay, cool. So I've got some basic stuff in here, right? What is it that I can put in, right? That I want to have some private stuff, this whole check collision thing. I can probably put the whole thing, yeah? So let's just do that. Let's just take this whole thing here, right? If I've got this correct, right? No one's helping me out. I'm writing this myself, I guess. Right? And this is a private method, so I might as well put it under here. So I kind of put them in here. Oh. And we have some issues, so we're going to put this in here and say private methods. And I have a problem with plane. Look how I can't see plane right now, and I can't see distance. Okay. Some changes I have to make already. Would you agree? Okay, so there's my method, my private methods, and everything else. And the other thing is that I want to drag in my private utility method for distance. So here's my private utility method, and I put this in their private methods, and I can put this in like this, and now I have my distance error is gone. Okay, cool. But I don't know plane, because in my in this collision class, I don't know what plane is, because this dot plane, right, is defined here, not here, right? So how do I pass in this dot plane into this class so that it knows about it? I could. I pass in the plane, which is my player avatar, and instead of calling it plane, I should call it player, right? Because right now it's a plane, and in my new class, it's going to be the player. Whatever my new state, like in each state, it could be a different player. Maybe my plane is going to be different every time, right? May not be a plane in my second level. My third level might be a spaceship. My fourth level might be a walking man, whatever, right? But each of those things, it's got to be generic, right? So should I even call it anything, or should I just call it like player, which is of type game object? That's the way to go, right? So I'm going to, in my constructor then, so far it took no parameters, but now it's going to take one. I'm going to call this thing player, right, which is of type objects.gameObject. Player is an object.gameObject, which means I'm taking away this plane, and I'm changing this plane to player to make it more generic. And it can't be player. It's going to be this dot player, because player comes in here, but I got to create some kind of holder for the player in my class, right? Which is going to be a private holder, right? So it's going to be private the underscore player, right? Which is of type game objects.gameObjects. This is encapsulating it so that it's nicely separated from the other one. When we pass it in, it's passing it as a reference anyway. So it's a reference type. So we'll have access to the actual the thing itself. But in here, I'm going to say something like this. This dot underscore player is equal to player. This passes it in. So now when I go here, I can say something like this dot underscore player, and the same thing goes here. This underscore play. Instead of playing, it's player. Okay, so we fixed that piece. So my player, I need, when I call this constructor, every time I got to send my player in here. That's what it means. It doesn't know what my player is. And this is good, because that means in my second level, it's not a plane anymore. It's something else. My third level, it's something else. It's more generic, right? But I always got to pass in a reference to my player. When I instantiate my, on the constructor, when I first instantiate my collision class as an object, I got to pass in a reference to my player. What's another way around that? I could make it that the player is an object, a generic object, a global object in my game, right? So that it carries that forward, and I never have to do this one time. But that's dangerous because my player won't get wiped away in my states, and it'll carry forward, and I'll have issues where my player won't reset and won't do different things. I want to kill my player every time. Every time I go from level 1 to level 2, that player is done. And I create another player object again when I instantiate my level. I want to encapsulate my level, right, and hide the stuff that's inside of there instead of having it always in there. Okay, so this is good. So this is the first thing I need. So I don't just take no constructor. I'll say player. Parameters game is a player object, right? Player object as parameter. There's my player object as parameter. That's what my collision constructor does, right? I have my update method. My update method, what am I going to do? I'm going to say this dot underscore check collision, right? Just like I normally would. And I'm going to pass in there, I'm going to have to pass in there an object, a game object, right? If I do it this way in my update. So what does that mean? That means I got to pass into my update method, right, the game object that I'm checking, right? So in my update method, in my parameter of my update method, I got to say object, which is of type game object, object.game object. And then to pass this object into my collision. No. No, because if I did that, if I pass that in there as well, right? I mean, I could do that too. I could pass it into my update and now pass it, and so have my check collision pass my player, not into my constructor. I can do it both ways, right? But I need some kind of way. This way and this way, I'm holding a reference to my player class in my collider, my collision class, right? The other way, this way, if I change my check collision method, I have two objects. I'm asking for my player and my object. Object 1 and object 2, basically. I'm checking two objects, very generic now. Two objects, I want to check the distance, and I want to have that. That might be more generic than what I'm doing here. So, guys, what do you want me to do? It's your collision class. You tell me in this case. Do you want me to pass it into the constructor, so it's specifically a player, or do you want me to make this collision class work for any two objects? Right? That means I can check between cloud and island. Object 1, object 2, as opposed to player. Okay, that's different. So that means we don't do this. We don't care about this anymore, right? Bear with me while I show you what I'm talking about, because it's not a player anymore that we care for. And we don't do this. We don't do player objects, game objects. We do, instead of this player, the first object, that we're going to take two objects. One of them is object 1. The other one is object 2. Right? So we're going to rename this one here inside this namespace as object 2. So we're going to kind of refactor, rename symbol, and we're going to call this object 2. And make sure that there's no other reference to object 2 anywhere else, right? Like this doesn't change this one, only this one does. And instead of player, we're going to rename this symbol, again, we're going to rename this symbol to object. Do not rename this element, it says. Okay. Let's just name it let's just rename it by hand. So we'll say object which we don't have yet, which we will have in a second. And maybe we'll call it, just makes sense, we'll make it object 1. There we go. Object 1. So 2 objects, object 1 and object 2, doesn't matter which one. The only thing that object 1 has to be the player object. And object 2 is the enemy object, right? Otherwise, it won't check. What? That doesn't matter, actually. It doesn't matter. Because it'll just check to see if it's an island or a cloud. Doesn't matter what object. So we'll kind of go like this. And we'll say this is object 1. This is object 1 and object 2. And now when we check collision, we need 2 objects, right? In my update, I need object 1 and I need object 2, which I'm going to pass into my class. Object 2. And into my class, you're going to have object 1 and object 2 in the local space. I'm using my update method to pass 2 parameters, object 1 and object 2, and then check to see if there's a collision between 2 of them. So now it's more generic. Now it'll check any two objects. It doesn't have to be a player. The only thing is that my objects have, the one I'm checking right now, have 2 names. I can check islands or clouds. So I can check my island if it collides with a cloud, and my cloud if it collides with an island, right? I can do that. I can check my player to collide with each one. But I can't check if it's a collision with a player, because I don't have that option in here yet, right? For example, I could add coin as an object as opposed to island or cloud, right? Okay, cool. So that's good. That's very generic. I've made it work nicely. So I take no parameters here. Again, no collision constructor, no parameters. Empty. It's basically the empty constructor. Empty constructor. We got to be careful what we put in here, because whatever we put in here is going to be seen outside. Whenever I put this for notation in here, that's seen outside of the class, right? So that's good. So now I'm exporting this thing. This whole thing is being exported as a collision class, and is part of my manager's namespace. Okay, how do I add a module? Review. How do I add a module to my code? So I've got the module, and well. That's perfect. Yes, that's how it works. So let us do that first of all. Let's kill this, and we'll kind of go in here, and we'll look at my index.html. Oops. And in my index.html, I know that I have my JavaScript libraries, my game scripts, and my game scenes. Where would my manager go? Definitely underneath all these objects, and definitely before the scenes. So all my game managers, if you will, or controllers, call them what you like, they should go here. So this is our game managers, right? And I'm going to make a new, I'm just going to copy the script right here and put it over here. And it's under scripts. Instead of objects, it's under scripts managers. You got to get the right path. And instead of scene.js, it's collision.js. So we know that's the collision manager. So that's the first piece. I need this. I might as well just take this thing here, scripts managers collision.js. So I'll take this whole thing and save everything and go back to my game.ts file, which is in my core. Go to the top, and I need to put it in the same place right here. So I'm going to go, let's type it by hand to show you that it works. So // and then we'll do a reference path equals to, and then paste, and then / like this. And if everything goes well, if I put it correctly, right, which I did not, because it's not scripts, it's actually, if I go here, it's .. right, .. managers .collision.js. It's not JS, it's .ts. And that's it. That's the collision path. That path is correct. So managers collision.ts. Good. Now that I have access to it, let's test it here in my. I'll just transpile everything, and let's test it here in my my game my game.ts file. So if I have access to the game manager class, first of all, I have to try this out. So how do I do that? If I want to declare a new collider, a new collision, I can say var collision then is of type managers.collision, right? Managers.collision. And that's what we call equal to a new managers. Don't do this, just I'm showing you that I can see it. If I can see this, that's good. That's a good sign that I get all this code hinting and stuff. That means now this is the kind of way I'm going to put this inside my game.ts file, which is in my scenes. Let's replace my scene stuff with what I already have. So here's my scripts. This is my core, and I want to go to my game, which is in my scene. This is my game scene. Okay, cool. So at the top of my game scene, I have a new object, right? It's going to be a private object that I'm going to call collision with an underscore, right? So let's do that. So I have my ocean, my island, my plane, and I have my new object here that I'm going to call underscore collision, which is of type managers.collision. Okay? And inside my start method, right, after I declare everything in my ocean, my island, my plane, and my cloud, I'm going to declare my collision. I'm not going to add it to the stage, though, so I don't need to add it. There's no object added to the stage. It's an object I'm adding in. So I'm going to say this.underscore collision is equal to a new managers.collision object. Okay, that's what I'm doing. So this is, so instantiate collision object, or collision manager. Yes, that's what I'm doing. So I'm instantiating my collision manager here, right at the inside of my start method that I created. Okay. And then, do I need this stuff? Because I've got my utility method. I don't need this stuff anymore. I can take this all out because I don't need it anymore. It's gone. Okay, so this is all gone. Oh man, what happened? I got all these errors now. Well, I can get rid of those too. So, because remember, I want to keep my states clean. Okay, so here's my, just erase some of this stuff here, keep it cleaner. So I've got my update method, right? And in I update my ocean, I update my island, I update my cloud, and then I want to do my update on my collisions. So let's replace this stuff with my collision class. How do I do that? So this.underscore collision, right? Dot update, and I need to pass in my update object 1 and object 2, right? Where object 1 is my plane, so this.underscore plane, and object 2 is my cloud, which this.underscore clouds cloud. That's the new way of writing it, right? And this collision method is gone. Looks a bit more complicated, but actually I'm using a generic collision method to do that, all right? And I'll do the next one. So, and here, where my general collision is for my island, I'll say this.underscore collision dot update, and this.underscore plane with this.underscore island. Check those two things out. That's what I'm saying. Make sense? So I've got rid of my collision, my collider, from inside of my state, my game state or scene, right? I got rid of it, and I'm using my collision class to create a collision object as a manager. Here's my collision manager, right? And I'm updating my collision manager, right, inside my update method, right, for both my clouds and my island. And I'm checking between plane and island, or plane and cloud. That's what I'm doing. Right? So that way I have a generic collision class that takes care of both. This is great because now tomorrow, right, I'm saying next time, I can make a bullet from an enemy. And that's going to be something I can check too. I can say plane and bullet. Plane and coin. Plane and enemy plane. I can make many different things to check if I collide, right? So it's a generic collision class that I make, and it works across my scenes. It's not scene dependent anymore, right? That's why I want to make this way. Let's see if it works. Because we're a lot of talk, but we don't know if it works yet, right? So I'm going to refresh, and I'm going to go back into my thing here, and I'm going to go localhost 8080, and then make sure we refresh the page. And I'm just going to pull up my console here, just because I want to see my console. So I'm going to kind of go more tools and developer tools, and I want to see my console, see if there's no errors. Right now it shows there's 3 objects. What are the 3 objects? And I'm going to take some of this tooling off later on. I've got my Mail Pilot font, I've got my Ocean bitmap, and I've got my button. Those are my 3 objects. Okay, let's start. Now I got 6 objects. Right? And my collision's working nice. See?
Yay. Yay. Yay.
Right, it's all good. And I'm using my new collision manager. Great. So that's good. That's a good thing that I've got this going. So my game state is pretty much done, right? But in my collision manager, right? In my collision manager, depending on which thing collides, I want to set up some points, and I want to send this stuff off to another manager of mine that I want to make, right? I want to be able to keep track of points now, right? Now, let's go back and talk about this. It's something where when I create a scoring system, I got to think clearly about what I'm doing, right? Am I creating a global scoring system? Global. So it means if I go from one level to the other, the score never gets reset, except when I start my first level. Got to think about this, right? If that's true, then I never instantiate my scoreboard inside a game state. I instantiate it inside my core game, and it passes along. It transcends states. I don't care about states. It keeps track of my score as soon as I start my game. My score starts at 0 when I start my game. I start playing, and unless I start over again and go to my first game again, it won't wipe out my score. If that's true, if that's the way I'm going to write my score, I can create a scoreboard class, and I can include it only in my core game.ts file, right? And then I can reference it as a global object, right? That's one way of doing it. Way 2, right? My scoreboard is something that's only scene specific, right? And each of my scoreboards acts as a HUD, heads-up display, which is individual for each scene, right? These are 2 options, right? So my scoreboard keeps track of the score. It gets instantiated and keeps track of the score. And when I'm done, my scene returns right back to my my core game.ts file. It returns the score, which I later pass into the other scene. So I pass my score through. I hand off my score from one scene to the other. How would you rather do it? Would you rather hand off your score from one scene to the other like a baton? I'm handing the baton, passing the baton, right? I have my data, and I want to pass my data from one scene to the other. I can make a global object to keep the data going, static object basically that holds the data, or I can create individual objects, and I return, when I close down my scene, I return an object upon close down. When I wipe off my scene, my scene itself keeps track of my score, which I return back to the main game, and I pass that to the next scene. So when I instantiate my scene, I ask for a parameter every time, which means I have to change my scene class, by the way. Going back, that's a big change. When I instantiate my scene class, all my other scenes will require some kind of score or something like that to be held in my scenes. So there's some different ways of doing it. What would you recommend? Lilia, what do you think I should do? You're the architect now. You tell me what you want. Should I have a global object, or should I pass my score, pass the baton, my score from one scene to the other by passing it off, handing it off?
One global object and then small objects.
I could, but I don't need to have, if I have a global object, I don't need a small object anymore. I just have one global object and it keeps track of my score. That's the easiest way to do it. Huh? Because it wouldn't change, right? If I have a score, I have a score for my whole game. So in this particular case, I could create a score manager like I did here for my collision manager. For example, I could create an alien manager for all my aliens, all my hazards, if you will. A hazard controller or hazard manager. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, right? Like for example, my clouds, they're all hazards. I got to avoid the clouds. And if I don't avoid the clouds, then I die, right? And that's what keeps track of my score. So my recommendation is, for now, to keep it simple, let's make it global, right? We'll make it as part of the game.ts core file, right? Instantiate it there and pass it along. We don't have to pass it along anymore. It's part of my global state. And all I'm doing is updating this static value for my score. So even at the end, I have options. When I start playing my game for the first time, I just reset my score and I reset my life to what to the reset values. Okay? So let's see how this works. I'm just gonna update this. And by the way, you know what? I did some changes. There's a great place to update GitHub. So I'm gonna go here to GitHub. I'm gonna click all these changes, all the changes I made just now, right? When I made my collision class. So added collision class. That's what I did, right? And I'm gonna go here and push. Right, so it's my collision class. And it's a good way to check, guys. Whenever you see my commits, you can always go back and see each commit, what I did, like when I added the class. What did I have before my commit? And what did I have after I committed, right? Because it's pretty good. You can see the differences, how the game has evolved, if you have time to look. Okay, so this is my game state. I'm going to access it here. What I really want is I need another class, if you will. I'm going to put it as a manager, right? But I'm going to instantiate it in my core state as opposed to my game state or my game over state or my menu state. Okay, it's not going to be there. It's going to be in my core state, which is going to be the one that's going to control my whole game, almost like my app.ts file, if you will. Okay, so let's take a look at that. So how do I do that? First, I need another manager. So I'm going to go to Managers, right-click, New File. I'm going to call this scoreboard.ts. Okay, and of course, I'm going to do the same thing. I want to ask you questions. Let's do it. So I'll say module, managers, which is same managers module, right? And then inside my managers module, I'll put in the name of my class, which I'm going to export, not export. My class name, which is going to be called scoreboard with a capital S, capital B, scoreboard. My scoreboard. And this class itself, so here's my scoreboard class. Let's do some annotations while we're going. So scoreboard class. There you go. And inside my scoreboard class, I have a constructor. So this is my what's this the empty constructor for now. Right, so we don't know what we need for my constructor. We'll call it constructor. And in my constructor, I'm not going to do anything yet. I'm going to have an update method, right? This is very familiar, right? Update method, which we're going to make public, and it's going to return void. Public update and return void. Okay. So my constructor, and we need a couple of values, static values that we want to keep track of, right? So how do we do this? We're going to say. We're going to make them public, by the way, 2 public values. So public, actually, should we? We don't need to. We can make them private, and we can use the update method to update them. But I need to set them somehow. So I need getters and setters because of Steven, because he's making me do the right things. All right, so let's do private. So private instance variables, which we're going to call 2 of them, private, which is going to be the score, right? There's a score, and which is going to be of type number, and private underscore lives, which is also a number. Okay, so score and lives, those are the 2 private instance variables, and might as well create my properties, so public properties for these things. So public properties, private instance variables, public properties. So public, we'll say some getters and setters from both. So get score, or sorry, set score properties, right? Set score, which is going to take a value, right? Whatever the value is, which is going to be a number, and it's going to return nothing because it's going to set. And I'm going to take the value and I'm going to add it into my score. So I'm going to say this that underscore score, right? is equal to my value. But that's bad, right? Because set score means I'm going to set the score with a specific value, right? Well, I may need another one. What else? What other one can you think of doing? How about increment score? Add something to add score. I'm going to set my score. I can set my score, and I can add my score. I'm going to use my set score method for the first time. When I first set up my constructor or whatever, I can set my score, or if I call it again, I can set my score, reset my score to 0, right? But that's the only time. And same thing with set lives. So if I was going to do the same thing with set, I'm just going to copy this and just change it to lives for a second. That's my setter. So I'll say set lives. And it's a value. And I'm going to say underscore lives equal to the value. So that's my getters, my setters for my set lives and set score. I also want my getter to get my score. So public get score. And again, I don't want to have anything in there, but this time it's going to return my number, whatever the score is going to be, right? Which means I need a return statement that returns this dot underscore score, right? And now I'm going to copy this thing and put it down here. And instead of get score, it's going to be get lives. Again, this is just an extra step. And then, of course, this dot underscore lives is what I want in there. Okay, so that's my getters and setters, right, so far. And I want to make one more, but this is not a getter and setter officially. It's a method. So I'll put it as a public method. This is also public methods. And this is my update method. So I'll do the new annotation type, public, the update method, which updates stuff for me, right? And I also want the add score method and subtract lives method. Those are the two methods I want. Add scores and I can never get. Can I ever add lives? I could, right? If I do a pickup or something like that, I can maybe add lives. I can add score. I can never subtract score though in my game. Okay, no, not my game. So I'm not gonna do it. So I'm gonna say, so this is my add score method, right? And I could describe that. Adds, points to the score. And of course, this is going to be a public method called add score, right? And of course, it's going to add it. Of course, it's going to take in my score, which is a number, right? Whatever the score is, 100, 200, whatever. And then I'm going to return void. It's not going to return anything. And it's going to say this dot underscore score plus equals to score. So I'm going to add the score on. I'm not just going to get it or set it. I'm going to add on. I'm going to use this method a little bit too, right? And I might as well add lives in the same way. So I'll copy this whole thing and go down here, add this thing. Instead of add score, it's going to be add lives. Because I can add lives if on a pickup, adds lives to lives, which is going to be called, that's what it's going to be called, add lives. Number, and it's going to be life. How many lives do I want? Yeah, I get more than one life, right? So this dot underscore lives is equal to live, plus equals to lives. So I can go one or more lives. Makes sense, right? So that's my add lives, my add score method. And what I also say, I can't subtract score. That's not my way. But I do want to subtract lives, right? Because that it could happen, right? Because if I hit a cloud, I can subtract my life, right? It's more often the case. So maybe I'll call it remove lives, right? Remove lives, and will be a minus equal to the number of lives I want to remove, right? And this remove lives method removes lives from lives. And I'll say this before lives, right? Make sense? So I've got these methods, and they're all part of my export. Okay, cool. So I go around, I add lives, I remove lives, and what do I want to do with my score? I want to update. I want to update my score. Whenever on update, what do I do with my update? Right? I got to think about what I do with my update yet. Right now, I don't have anything to do with my update, so let's leave it blank. Right? I don't have any update method yet, but I want to kind of put it in as a stub. Okay? I may have to go back here again and do something with it. Let's transpile for this one first, and let's go back into my index.html, and we know that I need some other stuff in here. So I know it's a manager. It's definitely going to be called before my collision has to be called, because I need to know about my score manager in order for me to use it in collision. All right, so that's the right way to think. So I'm going to kind of copy this and put it in here, and it's going to be called scoreboard. This is my scoreboard.js, and I've added it into my file, and now I'm going to go into my game.ts in my core, right? Game.ts in my core script, which is way up here. And in here, before my collision, I'm going to add in my scoreboard. I'm going to say managers.scoreboard. Okay, so good. We've made my module. I've connected it up. I'm going to transpile for a second. But now is where I want to create this global object. I've already done it for assets and canvas and stage and blah, blah, blah. And I have my menu and my game and whatever. I'm going to make another one called managers that are global. Yeah, scoreboard manager, right? So in here, in my managers, I'm going to say var. That's why I've used var, right? Scoreboard is of type managers.scoreboard, right? That's the first thing. I just want to declare my scoreboard. This is where my keeps track of my score. But now, where do I instantiate it? So in my init function, like I got to instantiate something definitely before my game loop. I never want to do it in there, right? And I don't want to do it in my setup stats or in here. I don't know why there's all these spaces in here, but let's get rid of it. And not in my change state, so I don't want to touch it there. Or in my current, I'm not going to touch any of this stuff, right? So where would I instantiate it? And chances are it's somewhere between preload and init. By the way, init, you could rename init to start, and it'd be the same, right? So probably somewhere in here, right, where I do my canvas and my create.js ticker, my setup stats, and my state and my menu state. And right before my state, I'm going to instantiate my manager, my score. So I would say something like this: scoreboard and is equal to a new managers.scoreboard. And if I do this, managers.scoreboard, notice how it says constructor manager scoreboard, right? That's what it does, and it's the empty constructor. It says that right here, because that's what I put in my class, right? Okay, cool. So that's what that does. So I have my access to my scoreboard. Whew, setup. Now that I have access to my scoreboard, I can use it in my game.ts file, which is my first scene, and I can use it in my game over.ts file later on, right? So let me go to my game.ts file, which is in my states, and here it is, right? So in my game.ts file, I have access to it, and I can include my score and my lives as two labels that I put on my game. But further than that, I want to update my score and my lives in my collision class. So I'm going to go ts, my collision.ts. And inside here, in my collision manager, I want to go into my island. Let's set this up first. And I play yay, but before I play yay, I want to do this. I want to say, I want to update my scoreboard. So I'm going to say scoreboard add score, right? Add score. I'm going to add 100 points. So that works. So you see, I can add 100 points every time I kind of hit an island, right? And this one is scoreboard dot remove lives 1. I remove a life. I remove a life every time I hit a cloud. I add things up. When do I set up my lives and my score for the first time, set lives and set score, right? Because I do that, I have to do that somewhere. I don't do it here in my collision manager. I would do that when I first instantiate, or that's one way of doing it, or I can do it when I, you know, in my constructor. My constructor takes there's no objects that it takes right now, right? So I can kill some of my setters and getters if I want. But it makes sense that I would just, since I have my setter, I might as well use it. So I'm going to go to my, for now anyway, I'm going to go to my game, my core. And here when I set up my score, my scoreboard, underneath that I'm going to say scoreboard dot set live, so I'll do set lives to 5, and scoreboard dot set score to 0. But hold on, right? Should this be here, or should this be every time I start my game? And I think this is where it should be. It should take it out here, save, go back to my game in my states, and inside my, when this thing starts, in my start function, before I start my ocean and everything else, right, I do that, that's the first thing I do. So I kind of do one of these, boop, scoreboard.setLives to 5, and so that resets my scores, that kind of thing. That's what it does. So, and that reset score, that's a interesting way of saying that. I could create a reset function instead of an update method that resets everything to back to normal. But let's leave it this way because I don't know, that's too specific again. So I'll say reset score, scoreboard. That's what it does. So reset scoreboard. Okay, cool. Now I want to show my scoreboard. So how do I add some labels? Well, I have a couple labels, right? And remember, I created some labels, but they're all centered, right? Now let's go and look at my label objects for a second to remind ourselves what our labels do. So I have my label TS file, and it does a couple things. It says I have my label font, my label color, my string, and I have a X and Y coordinates. And I also automatically, what I do is I use my registration values X and Y. Well, I want to make this an option, right? So I want to say, I want to have a thing to say centered. So I'll say another part of my constructor. I'm going to open this up for you, which means I'm going to have to change my labels wherever I use them, right? And I'm going to say centered then is a Boolean value that I'm going to take in. Okay, and when I check centered, I do this. I say, well, if centered, right, is true, then I use my registration values. I set my registration values to the middle, like this. So I make a more of generic label class, right? Else, I don't. So then I just use my X and Y coordinates, and that's all I do, right? This is useful because now I can extend the text class, and my label is more generic. But what that means is, when I transpile, I'm going to have to go back and change some errors. There's going to be a couple errors here. So let's look at the errors that I got. I got one that I got here, because in my label for male pilot, I also have to send in that it's centered. So I'm going to say true as a flag. See? And I have one more error under my my menu. There's my menu state, or my game over state. Sorry, my game over state says my level label also has to show true, right? So I'm centering those things as well. It's my game over class, right? Make sense? So transpile that. Okay, now that my labels are set up properly, right? And I made some 22 changes just now. Let us check my my class here, and what I want to do is inside my my regular game state. So let's just get rid of this, and actually I'll transfer this one. And we're running out of time, but I can probably do it in 2 seconds. So bear with me. It's always like this, eh? In here, not my core, inside my states, inside my game.ts state. Right here, I want to set up 2 labels. And what I want to do is they have to be in the, this up here. Collision shouldn't be there, by the way. Collision should be underneath the clouds. Sorry, just reorganizing. Okay, what I meant is, these are my private instance variables. I need 2 more. I need a private instance variable called score label. I'll be all right. Oh yeah, buddy, sing away. Which is of type objects dot label. Can you close that door, Lilia? Thanks. And private, which is my lives label, which is of objects dot label. Right. So I need those two objects in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to instantiate them right down here. I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say this dot underscore score label, right, is equal to a new objects dot label, which needs a couple things. I need a string for the label, which is going to be a score, and I need my label font, which is going to be Consolus, and we'll make it something like 20 pixels right now. I don't know, maybe that's too small. We'll see what that is. And I don't know if it's Consolus 20 pixels or 20 pixels Consolus. I think it's 20 pixels. Thank you. Consolus. And then I need label color, which is same color. So pound FFFF00. And then I need an X and Y coordinate. This is the key. So to the left, X is going to be equal to like 5. And Y is going to be equal to 5 for the first one, right? And centered is false, because I don't want to center them. And then I'm going to say this dot add child, this dot underscore score label. Make sense? Hey, cool, cool. So now I've gotten that, and let's do the next one for my lives label. This dot underscore lives label is equal to a new, and I'll copy all this part in here so it's the same. So we don't have to copy and paste that too much. And instead of score, it's going to say lives, and it's going to be 20 consoles, but in this time it's going to be like 350x and 5y, false, and we're going to say this dot add child. I'm guessing for 350x, by the way. Add child, this dot underscore lives label. Now, I think my score's on the left, my lives are on the right. I may have done it the other way around before. So don't worry about it. Who cares? So this is my score label, and this is my lives label, Okay? Score label on the left, lives label on the right. Okay? And it doesn't update yet. Let's see if it works, though. So I'm going to transpile everything. And after I finish transpiling, I'm going to go run it by going to localhost, and let's see if it crashes. Can I crash it, please? A localhost 8080. And I'm going to refresh. Still good. Start. And I got nothing. Start, and I got nothing. Let's see what my issues are.
Yay.
Inspect element.
Yay.
Console.
Yay.
I've got my objects. Look, I got 8 objects, right? Well, no, I'm not. No, but it should be drawn. And draw it the first time, right? So where is it? How come it's not being drawn out the first time? But you know what? The good thing is, when I first started this game, it does mail pilot, which mail pilot is the same scoreboard. So that means that the mail pilot is written correctly. Let's look at my label. Maybe I did this wrong. So I'm going to go to my menu.ts file and take a look at why I did this. Menu, objects, label, mail pilot, 80 pixels, Consolus, FF320 by 140, and then true. I did that correct. And this add child, this dot add child, mail pilot. Okay, so I did that correct. That's really good. And I did it right here as objects.label, so everything should be there. So it shouldn't fail. So I go by game.ts is going back here, and I have to check to see if I've done everything correctly. So again, score label and live label, they're all objects.label. And there's my score and 20 pixel Consolus, and let's a 350 X and Y, right? And they're false. False, false, false. So that's interesting. When I was true, it worked exactly. Let's make them true. Sorry. Let's make them true for a second. just to see if they come on board, if I make them true, because that could be an issue with my code. So boom, boom, and I don't have time to troubleshoot right now, unfortunately, but this is the way it is. And notice how I never update the thing. It just sits there. I don't have to do an update for a label because it just sits there, right? So I don't have to update it. And I'll transpile, and I'll go back to here, and I'll refresh this thing, and I click on this. I got nothing. So something's not right. And if I check game.ts, and I look at it just to see if it's there, like if it actually includes it. Here's my game.ts file, right? This is my generic game.ts file that I'm adding. I didn't do a label yet, right? I'm just checking this piece, but let's look at scripts. And under objects, this is neat. Look at this. Objects or scenes, states. If I go to my game.ts to see which one I got, this is the one I have. Here's my level label, right? My score and my lives, 20 pixels consoles, and I add my score label as a new objects.label, right? Oh, I know why. I'm so dumb. What did I do wrong? I know exactly what I did wrong. My score label and my lives label are underneath the ocean. And they shouldn't be here at the top. They should be at the bottom, right? So I should take all this stuff because they should float above the clouds and above everything else. Before it's like the second last thing that I do before this. Otherwise, they won't show up. And that's why, because nothing wrong with my code, because I saw the objects were there, 8 objects, but now it's just not the right order. Remember, it's in layer order, right? So let's go here, and we'll kind of do that again, and go back in here, and go over here, and go localhost, and put the right ports, because I'm wasting time, right? And then start playing, and refresh. How about refreshing? Start playing, and there's my, oh, okay. That's good. I have to reset this. 20 is not big enough. I have to make it 40, right? So we'll leave this going for now. And now I turn the centered off. So I'll make this false again. False. And I'll make this 40 pixels instead of 20 pixels. And I'll transpile. And I'll go back here and refresh. And that's better, right? That's good. Now I have to update my score. So how do I do that? I'm going to go back to here, and I'm going to do one of these. I'm going to say, well, I know that I have a text label now, right? So whenever I do an update, right, it's now in my generic level, right? But this is where it holds my score label and everything else. It gets changed according to what my score is, right? And you know what? This is kind of weird, really weird too. I want to update my score regularly, right? So, what do I do? What do I do? Tom, what do I do? Well, I need to make an update score method, right? That's one thing. So I'm going to call it over and over again. So on the bottom of my class, right, before the bottom, I'm going to call a new private method called update score. Remember the update we made. Going to return void. And what it's going to do is going to take this stuff here, right? And it's going to reprint them. So this, I'm not going to add them back to the grid. I'm just going to take my score label and my lives label .text and update them with my score and my lives. So I'm going to say something like this. I'm going to say this .score label .text is equal to score, right? Plus, I'm going to add in the scoreboard.score. Get score, sorry. Right? And this _lives label .text is equal to lives and then plus scoreboard .get lives. Right? And this update score method is going to be done after the collision is done. So I'm going to say this _update score. And I need to do this here because score label and lives label doesn't exist in my scoreboard. right? Sorry. This is it right here. See? So what I'm doing is I'm saying update my score based on what my lives are, right? And I'm going to do that every frame. Make sense? Okay, let's check this out and see if it works now. And we'll have a fully working game. We'll be done with this male pilot stuff, right? And we're overtime again, but I apologize. What can I do? All right, so go back to here, and we'll say localhost 8000, and we will refresh the game and go back, and I don't have it. How come it doesn't work?
Yay.
Nothing. I got nothing.
Yay.
All right, well, let's go back and check to see why, right? So again, I go to there's a couple problems potentially here. We haven't checked to see if this thing works. So let's do, and again, I get get score and get lives, my scoreboard that get lives, and I set lives and set things up here. Let's just see what I get if I do console.log, right? So scoreboard.get lives. Should probably check that first to see if that works, and to get score, right? Get score. You can see where I'm going. This is I'm just doing troubleshooting to see if I'm actually getting a score, sending a score, and I'll transpile everything, and then I will go back here and refresh everything, and I'll also open up a developer tools, inspect element. There we go. Just to see how many I got, right? So I got my score, and then I'll refresh again and start. Okay, now it works now.
Yay.
So 100.
Yay.
And then lose a life, right?
Yay.
Yes, I get that. And then see how
Yay.
originally my
Yay.
score changed, and then get see it's
Yay.
my end of the game.
Yay. Yay.
And it goes to -1. And of course, my next thing would be when I go, my score goes to -1. What do? I jump to the next level, which is my game over level. Okay, so I think that's time out for today. We're at 6:30. My colleague is going to flip out again. So thanks, guys. I think you know how to take it to the next level here. I will finish this off by next time. We'll get in just to do a quick tweak, and then we'll go on to the next project, which is something we're going to start next week.